Welcome back. You're watching NewsX. My name is Vineet. On account of the US returning 248 stolen antiquities to India, presenting a special show to throw light on more such antiquities that are yet to be returned and also address the status of the antiquities that have already been returned to our country. Let us talk about how to expedite this process as a country and how to bring the remaining wonders of India back to our own country. Some of these antiquities have been identified. They have also been placed as to where they are, but they're still inaccessible. We'll be talking to some experts from the field and taking their expert opinion on what they feel about this particular topic rather. Cynthia Meera Frederick, author and historian, is joining us on the program. Anurag Saxena, founder of India Pride Project, is also here with us. Rahul Ishwar, Hindu activist, also joins us on this all-important show. Ambassador Suresh Kumar Goel, former diplomat and former DG, ICCR, is also starting to talk about this very important topic for India. Anurag, let me start by asking you a very simple question. What does this mean for India? You know, we've been able to tell the Americans that, look, you know, these artifacts, these antiques belong to us. They're worth crores of rupees, and it is time that they be returned to India. What do you think is still to be done, and how do you hail the progresses that India has made in getting what belongs to us?
Well, you see, so I'm obviously beyond delighted, elated that this is happening. You see, India is one of the few civilizational nations there is, and that's a very unique situation, or it's a very unique advantage for any nation to have, to be able to say that, hey, we are a civilizational nation. All these objects that are now coming back are symbols of our civilization. And, we really, from a geopolitical perspective, we cannot be taken seriously if we cannot respect and rightfully demand back what were symbols of our civilization. Second, from a faith perspective, if you're talking about these 248 objects, and more importantly, Vineet, I'd like to talk about the Shobha Yatra that has started today, where the Murti of Annapurna Devi has started from Delhi and will eventually reach Kashi Vishwanath, where it will be reinstalled. Over the next 5 days, it will traverse 18 districts and 1,000 kilometers. What something like that does to the faith of a community that has been vandalized in the past is extremely important. And it is restitutions like these and very visible reinstallations like these which will help us as a people get over the collective trauma that we've suffered due to centuries of plunder and colonization. So I am delighted that this government is making this move. And it's not a political statement here. I mean, the numbers are out there. You know, in the first 65 years of India's independence, we had a total of 13 heritage objects that came back. That's roughly one every 5 years. In the last 7 years, we've had 200 plus objects being offered back to India, and many of them actually been physically brought back to India. So I think the record is there for anyone that needs to see, and I'm so glad that we are able to speak up not just against former colonizers, but against people and museums and nations that took it as their entitlement to steal away and take away what was rightfully ours. So I'm quite delighted that we're here. And this is finally a topic that Indians as citizens and governments and bureaucrats and systems are willing to finally engage in this conversation.
Absolutely. And Ambassador Goel, you know, there's always been patchy documentation of the objects that have been exported or smuggled out of our country. And this has been, going on for centuries now. But, this coming back of sorts is, not only delightful, but it's historic in a lot of ways because, like Anurag also pointed out, that it has not been done for the first 65 years of our independence.
Vineet, thank you very much. I think this is a very pertinent question at this time after several decades, more than 6 decades of our independence. If you give me a few minutes, let me try, and I have had a lot of experience of dealing with these issues in the ICCR when we had to take exhibitions out to several prestigious venues in Germany, in the USA, etc. And the documentation was always one of the key parameter on the basis of which the exhibitions were developed. So just a few minutes. The first of all, it's a very emotional issue because artifacts, whether religious, civilizational, or whatever, there are all different kinds of artifacts. Artifacts, even including the murals, sometimes the murals have been taken out. Uh, uh, or the rock works have been taken out, pieces of temples, etc. It's a very emotive issue because that does represent a part of our civilization and history. Uh, we need to think, when does our consciousness of our history and civilization began? I think most of our books, if you look at it, we began to understand our civilization or culture really over the last 1 century or 2 centuries. There was religion, of course, but in terms of belonging, it is not really more than a century or two old phenomenon. That is when we began to understand what it means to have those very valuable pieces of heritage. That's the point number one. Point number two, the archaeological phenomenon itself in India, when we began to discover all these things, is really not more than 6 or 7 centuries old. When we began to discover all these things, I'm not talking about Rock Temple, Ellora, etc., etc. They were there, but even Khajuraho, they have become very famous now, but they were all under a mound of dirt. Till I forget the name of the archaeologists who discovered the Khajuraho temples. So these are all really discoveries of about 6 or 7 centuries at the most. Now, archaeologists, when they discovered these things, there were no museums, so to say, in India where you could keep that precious heritage. Either they remained where they were, or they were taken away by the people who discovered them. There were no strict rules and regulations at that time on movement of these heritage. So archaeologists who took them, they were mostly from Germany or the UK, and they took them out. Or European, they took them out with them, and they became part of either private collections or public collections. Now, many of those things in the public collections have come to our notice now. And their pedigree as to where they came from and where they belong to is being noticed by us now over the last more than 7-8 decades. Valuation. They are very precious now. But when they were taken out, there was no valuation as such.
Correct.
Again, that's something. The point is that really the surreptitious movement of these things began only after India became independent. That is when the what you call the smuggling, surreptitiousness, etc. began. And even early part of our independent history, there was no protocol for the Archaeological Survey of India to determine whether the thing being taken out is a precious heritage or not. There was no certification required. There was no custom check, nothing at all. I think the first law to basically provide a certificate or requirement of a certificate before any such antiquity could be taken out is not more than 3 or 4 decades old. To the best of my knowledge, I could be wrong on that count. Therefore, when we talk about these things, we need to know whether they were actually stolen or they were actually taken out by the various people who discovered them. Undoubtedly, that belong to India, the part of Indian heritage. Now, if they were taken out by the archaeologists and collectors, genuinely without any restriction of law, to the other museums, and there is a lot of such rich heritage in very prestigious museums abroad. Victoria and Albert in London, you'll find huge collection. The museum in Berlin, huge collection you'll find the Indian antiquities, but they were all taken there genuinely. Most of the stolen things or so-called surreptitious things are in private collections. And many private collections also have objects which have been taken out before the laws came into application. So what I'm trying to say here is that the whole the whole thing is so dark and so unclear that one cannot always say they were stolen. Recently, after the USA gave to us those 200, around 170 objects when Prime Minister Modi was in Washington, around the same time, USA also returned several precious African heritage to Mali. They did that. So I think we need to keep on talking now to the various governments, keep in touch with them, identify the objects where they are. If the objects, it's unclear how they were taken out of the country, we have to negotiate. We have to talk to them. You remember about the objects belonging to Gandhi in London. You have to talk to them really, because they cannot completely prove that you are the owner. They came from India, yes, but ownership is always something which you need to talk about. But if they were taken surreptitiously, there is a well-established process of law which can be resorted to, and then you go into the court of law to retrieve them. Thank you, Vinny. I'm sorry I spoke for long, but I think it required a bit of an explanation.
Right, right. No, absolutely. I completely concur with you. And Cynthia, the other problem so far has also been that there is more emphasis, more focus on, the prevention of theft and, caring for the antiquities rather than retrieval. And this is perhaps a watershed moment where the latter is coming true, where retrieval is also being looked at as some form of a very important process whereby which, we see these artifacts and antiquities coming back to India.
Well, I want to say that it's so encouraging, the repatriation of these 278, I keep getting the numbers wrong, objects. It's so encouraging, yet that is just a drop in the bucket of what has been taken out. And I wanted to address something that Ambassador Goyal had brought up, and that is about the role of the individual collector. Now, we've had a lot of cooperation with museums, with government, but for example, I'll use the US collector as an example, being an American, and that is that there has to be some type of incentive for these collectors to come forward. We know of objects that have been looted from India that went through Subhash Kapoor's gallery.
Correct.
We don't know where, we don't know how to trace them. And we have to be able to say to any individual who holds such pieces that come forward and surrender the piece, let it be repatriated where it belongs, back in India. And the US, this would be sort of a joint effort, could offer this individual tax incentives, tax breaks, deductions for coming forward, and some type of, amnesty, for lack of a better word, where they could come and feel that, they could come forward without feeling that they themselves are a criminal, because many of these collectors were unwittingly buying pieces that had fake provenances, and they didn't know the dubious trail. So that's something I think some emphasis should be placed on, is working with individuals and not just museums. While I have this space, I'd like to really say that the India Pride Project has been such a source of inspiration. And I think that it's so important to get the community, the global community, active. And I've just been amazed with the role that you've played in tracing and tracking and returning so many of these objects. So I hope that we can all participate with you.
All right, absolutely. They've done a great job. Rahul Ishwar, if you're there with us. Rahul, if you're there with us.
Yes, sir. Yes, absolutely.
All right, Rahul, 248 objects, antiques coming back to the country. Obviously, when it comes to the law also, it hasn't kept up with the kind of relevance which is attached to Indian antiquities in the West as well. The law was formulated in the 19th century, then it was amended in the 20th century a couple of times in 1948 as well as 1972, but it really did not address the concern of how to retrieve these antiquities until now. And it is a great moment of joy to see all of them being returned to their respective places.
Absolutely. It's a matter of great pride and privilege. And, as an ordinary person, as a layman who is a devotee or who is an admirer of all this, it is a sense of homecoming. It's a sense of something being brought back to your home in a bigger, deeper way. And this is a civilizational treasure we are having. It's up to us to cherish, to celebrate. And like Ambassador Goel rightly said, we didn't have that sense of belongingness. Blame it on anything, but we didn't have it is a reality. So over the past century, we have inculcated that sense of belongingness, looking backward to find our roots in a deeper way. This has happened with many dharmic civilizations, and it's very important. India stands up for our history, our heritage, take a sense of pride, and people like Anurag Saxena ji, who is literally a soldier of the gods, who is working to bring back our heritage, is something we have to cherish. And being in a pujari or a priestly family, many a times I even remember during my childhood or even during the stories that we listen to a lot of loot from our nation, from foreign forces, from the invading forces. They are looting our treasure, but there was no strong attitude and assertive attitude to demand that what is rightfully ours. And it's very good that we are standing up, and India is one of the ancient most civilizations in the world. We have a civilizational responsibility not only to us, but to the entire heritage of humanity, because we all realize these are intangible cultural heritage of humanity. It is not only for us, but for the larger interest of the entire world. We should preserve that, and we should inspire similar ideas across our East Asia, across many nations where Indian culture also had an influence, and to all the nations in the world, to preserve, because these are the pathways we have traveled as a nation, as a civilization, as a culture. So these are literally connected to our forefathers. These are literally in our DNA, blood and bones. So it is much more emotional. Yes, legal aspects are there, technical aspects may be there, but this is intimately connected to us, and that realization should be there. And I'm very happy and I'm proud. I would like to commend your channel for bringing it to national awareness in a big way. Many a times media won't take anything that is not confrontational. They always want two sides to fight. No, that's good in one way, but we need such educative programs in one sense, so that the children of tomorrow, the youngsters of today will take this up and see that this is their heritage and history. And I hope we will inspire a cultural change which will take care of these historical heritage aspects in a deeper way and start to value it as a piece of our own.
Absolutely, Anurag. But there's still, a lot of work to be done. A number of Indian artifacts and antiques can still be found, in various museums around the world. The Guimet Museum in Paris, the Linden Museum, and the Museum of Indian Art in Germany, the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford, the Met in New York. All of these places have a number of Indian artifacts that still need to find their way back home. What more needs to be done, according to you?
Well, you see, okay, first, let me first thank Cynthia ji and Rahul ji for, really, it doesn't give me more joy than anything else to see this kind of work, our kind of work bearing fruit and it being recognized. I'm going to make three quick comments before I get to the question. Now, one, you see, whenever I hear this narrative of heritage objects being rightfully taken away from any indigenous community, you see, morality existed before the law codified it, right? Now, for examples, when colonizers were here, or even before that, when we had plunderers from the Middle East, they took away our lives, they took away our resources, and they took away our heritage. Now, as far as the lives and resources are concerned, it's gone. You can't bring it back. Now, heritage is the one tangible thing colonizers can do to make a point that, hey, listen, we're not proud of what our grandfathers stole from your grandfather, right? So I think, we have to tread this whole law versus morality argument a little carefully and focus on the moral argument rather than the legal argument. Second, clearly the era of internationalism has given way to the era of sovereign rights. What do I say when I mean by that? You see, starting with the League of Nations and then the United Nations, there was a lot of emphasis, even from India's side, right? I mean, the whole Gandhian way of interconnectedness and so on and so forth has now given space for nations asserting their sovereignty over one another. And this is not unique to India. This is unique to most nations across the world, especially if you look at ascending nations. I mean, I personally hate the nomenclature of developed and developing nations. I prefer ascending and descending nations instead. And ascending nations have gone ahead and said, listen, we respect the United Nations, we respect multilateral agencies and so on and so forth, but not at the cost of our sovereign rights. And our sovereign rights today can speak about the principle or should speak more about the principle of, as my friend Ananda Shankar Jain says, that history belongs to its geography. I think it's time for us to assert that principle or that moral or that ideological argument, not that, hey, listen, let's get bogged down in paperwork with you. Finally, and you know, Ambassador Goel, who I've respected for many, many years, especially because of his work in Asia, you know, there's a fascinating article written in Washington Post, which compares it's a comparative approach of India versus China in terms of reclaiming heritage back, and refers to the Summer Garden project, where China makes a demand from private collectors, as Cynthia said, and from museums to take back their heritage. And whichever collector or museum says no, very, very surprisingly, a theft happens, and the object disappears from there to be found back in China. That's the Chinese approach, which is based on force and on power. The Indian approach, on the other hand, is based on conversation, is based on moral suasion, which I think is a little more sustainable. So, if you Google for Washington Post plus Anurag Saxena, you'll find this article. And I really, we should read this article for how diplomatic approaches are emerging as far as heritage restitution is concerned. There's a fabulous film. In fact, it's won the first runner-up at the Chicago International Film Festival. It's called Blood Buddhas, and you should invite the director Nikhil Singh Rajput onto this show as well. It documents across multiple countries. It documents the approach on heritage restitution. So I think we need to change the conversation from a legal conversation to a moral conversation. We need, as a nation, to assert our sovereign rights and say, look, international treaties which are 40, 50, 100 years old don't really matter, because we as a nation have changed our mind, given that we are an emerging superpower. And we need to continue the sustainable way in which this government is actually making these restitutions happen. So I think broadly those three areas would be my focus. And again, I think from a domestic perspective, going back to the point Rahulji made, as a devotee, as a bhakta, it is important for him and a crore Indians to celebrate these successes very, very visibly, that these murtis should go back to the temples they were taken from, like it is happening with Annapurna Devi's murti today. There should be a Prana Pratishtha, there should be a Jal Abhishek. It is not a heritage object. It is not an object. You see, when a museum or a collector takes an object, it is for its aesthetic value or a showpiece value. For us, once you do a Prana Pratishtha, there is actually prana or life in the object. And I think that loose end needs to be tied up a little more actively than we are right now. A shroud of Turin, for an example, is far more than a piece of cloth. And that's something the collecting lobby needs to be made appraised of. And which is where I think the narrative that we've been building over the last many years, over the last 5, 6, 7 years, is very, very important, because we also need to change the mind of a Western collector or a museum curator. And I'm so glad, I say this all the time, we finally hit our Rosa Parks moment, where something that was legitimate a decade back is not legitimate anymore. And I think that's a huge success we as India have been able to achieve.
Right. We have to focus on the preservation and the conservation as well. Well, this is a 1-hour part show, and we're almost done with the first half. I'm going to take quick concluding comments from Ambassador Goel, Cynthia and Rahul, and then we're going to move on to the next half an hour. Ambassador Goel, starting with you, sir.
Vineet, I will rather reserve comments for the later half of the show. because I will take some time. So if you pardon me, I will let Cynthia and
Okay.
Rahul speak and
Sure.
give me the yes.
All right, Cynthia.
Well, I wanted to add that site protection is such an important part, something that we have to look at in India and as we move forward. The ASI simply can't look after every site, and that's why we have to work with. When I say we, I mean collectively with communities. We have to, transmit that sense of ownership. That again, a temple is not an object. Object sculptures from a temple, they're not they're living objects. Whereas in the West, they might be prized for aesthetics and for trophy collecting, so to speak. But
Right.
we have to empower local communities that these sites, these temples, these archaeological sites, these belong to them, and that's something that moving forward, I think that you will, if these people can be empowered, if they can really be entrusted with that, I think that's one part of the whole parcel, so to speak, and how we can protect more sites and address the problem of preventing thefts in the future. Repatriation, we can talk a little bit more of in the second half.
All right, Rahul.
A quick comment: when Cynthia Mehraji says we, we are proud to say that you as a person is leading and you as a person is guiding. So it is a collective effort. These are intangible heritage of our entire humanity. And, we always keep on saying the Greeks, the Romans, they might have perished, but still India as a living culture and civilization still exists for thousands of years. It's a matter of great pride. And we are, in one sense, lucky. We are, divinely, I believe that we are divinely destined to be born in this nation. So it's a responsibility towards our own culture, heritage, and to any form of divinity you believe, that you take pride in this. And I hope more schools, more awareness programs, mainstream media, movies, all these things do take care of this aspect beyond that profit mentality, because we are celebrating ourselves at the end of the day.
All right. Well, that's a good conclusion. On account of the United States returning 248 stolen antiquities to India, presenting a special show to throw light on more such antiquities that are yet to be returned and also address the status of the antiquities that have already been returned to India. Let us talk about how to expedite this process as a country and how to bring the remaining items back to India. We have a special telecast and some special panelists to talk more about this. At this point in time, let me welcome Nikhil Chandwani, author and founder of NYK Daily. Also joining us on the show is Nikhil Singh Rajput, director of Blood Buddhas, a movie that deals with, in fact, our antiques being smuggled outside of the country, and of course how to bring them back. And this is obviously about the colonial era. Akshay Chavan, co-founder and head of research, Live History India. And last but by no means the least, Professor Vasant Shinde, historian and archaeologist, also joins us on the program. Nikhil, let me start by asking you a very, Nikhil Singh Rajput rather, we have two Nikhils. Nikhil, let me start by asking you a very simple question. How elated were you when you saw that the pace at which our antiques and our artifacts were being brought back to the country has sped up? There was a lull for a few decades after the independence, but now, the reason to have these antiquities back into the country is not only catching pace, but it is also taking shape in terms of, how Indians perceive the importance of these antiques.
Actually, I was elated. I was elated to a point that I spent a year of my life making a documentary film on it.
Yes.
So the truth lies in the pudding, in the eating of the pudding, as the saying goes.
Correct.
Very glad that the government of India, the people of India, of course, are elated, but the government of India, the government machinery actually went all out on a diplomatic offensive, which is not generally covered in the media, to bring these artifacts back. And so these murtis that are coming back, there's a lot of work that has gone behind them. And one must give credit where it is due. ASI does not get a lot of credit, but they have done good work. So has the embassies, so has the government of India. So yeah, it's good work all around for a change.
Right. And Nikhil, your movie also talked about, the smuggling part of all of this, and how it has been a very malignant force in draining us of some of our national treasures. Do you think that to some extent is also going to be addressed by the government?
I don't see any forward movement on that. So the government has to pass strict laws. Some of us who are working in this area will tell you that every month you have some kind of a news where some murti is stolen from some small village temple across India. So this has been going on. Sadly, when people like us tell people, they have seen this issue in a Devanand movie back in the 1970s. So they think, oh, this used to happen in 1970s. We are in 2020, so obviously this is probably solved. But that's not the case. So the government has yet to legislate on it, and legislate they should, so that this smuggling should stop, because they're quite literally smuggling our heritage out of India. So,
yeah, I completely concur with you. Akshay Chavan, if you're there with us.
Yes.
Akshay, for decades now, Akshay, there was this sense of helplessness when we were drained of these antiquities. Do you think that sense is beginning to negate now? With this healthy information coming in, this healthy protocol being followed by the government to bring back our antiques?
It is, because India, with this whole well-known story of Sone Ki Chidiya and people looting things from the country. I mean, it's a long story which continued in the 70s and 80s. Now things are changing because there is greater awareness. There is pressure on the international museums to hand back stolen antiquities. But I would like to share a little bit of perspective on this leaky bucket, what I call, because even as we speak, I'm sure there are murtis being stolen, artifacts being taken outside India. And what is the solution? It's very simple, actually. We live in a digital age. If we just document or photograph the murtis and maybe create an online database resource which people can check, this temple has this murti, or this museum has, or this place has this thing, it can be easily tracked. Like somebody in New York can just access this photograph and see, oh, this is stolen from here, we need to repatriate here. Like, mind you, Subhash Kapoor, the most noted
the most notorious
smuggler, that's how he was caught, because of the photograph. So I think just a transparency in the system and making use of technology, we can really stop this antique smuggling and get our treasures back home.
Right, absolutely. Nikhil Chandwani, if you can hear me.
Yes, I'm able to hear you.
All right. Well, Nikhil, there is also a need to sensitize not people who are living abroad and who have these antiquities, but also people who take care of these antiques within the country, to realize the importance, because the fact of the matter is, and Nikhil Singh Rajput also pointed out, that the theft has not stopped, it still continues. Perhaps sensitization is going to be the big step, which is also going to serve the conservation part of this entire saga.
So whenever I read some travel websites, whenever I'm traveling, so you see all these European countries and European cities, the first thing that they highlight in any travel article, or when you talk to any expert traveler who has been to some European cities, is a museum. So museums are something which are vividly highlighted in these Western European countries. However, when we come to India, I am in Nagpur right now. 2 hours drive from Nagpur, there's a place called Chandrapur. The Chandrapur, around 10,000, 12,000 year old artifacts, they are kept over there. They are kept in a museum in Chandrapur. However, if you go right now and visit that place, it's in shambles. It's gone. Nobody outside of Chandrapur knows that a museum with 10 or 12,000 year old artifacts which are kept over there, which are preserved over there, actually exists. Nobody knows it. So the first thing that is needed, according to me, is mainstream. We need to bring these artifacts which are there in India right now to the mainstream media, to these travel articles, to these travel blogs which are available right now on social media sites as well as on television. If we are able to bring it on the mainstream level, then people will start visiting it, people will start paying to see it, paying to explore the history behind it, and maybe then there can be enough pressure to stop smuggling of artifacts from India.
Absolutely. Professor Shinde, What's your point of view on this good news that has come in? Obviously, we're not going to take this with a pinch of salt because what's happening is historic. What's happening is ideal at this point in time, but definitely we do not want to be the victims of smuggling in the future when it comes to our artifacts, because getting them back, as you can see, has taken decades.
Yes, yes. So thank you very much for inviting me here. I would like to bring to your notice that we never really tried systematically to retrieve our objects. We knew that a lot of objects have been there in fact in different parts of the world. There are some state players, maybe the smugglers, some dubious NGOs, individuals. They were involved in fact in these activities, and it was an open secret for everyone. So we never tried. Now the government has realized the importance of culture, realized the importance of the artifacts. And that the Ministry of Culture now has two ministers, in fact 3 ministers. There's one cabinet minister, there are 2 state ministers. So they are very serious about this marketing, retrieving our objects from outside. Also they are showcasing them in different parts of the country, and the government has a big plan on the development of museum almost in every district. So this is really very heartening news. Unless we get these objects, perhaps we will not be able to write our history holistically, because these are the missing links in our history. So we need to get them. These are our prides. In fact, where we knew that a lot of objects are lying outside, and when we want to study these objects, we have to take permission from them. Sometimes the permission is denied. So it is really insulting that our own objects, but we have to strive hard for getting the permission to study them. So this is really an unfortunate part. Now, I'm sure that the government is making all efforts, but in every Indian embassy, there is a cultural center, and there's a director for cultural center. This, the government should give directive to the director or the staff of the cultural center to identify the objects in in these different countries, so that it becomes very easy to retrieve them back to the country. In fact, I would like to mention, the efforts being made by the Archaeological Survey of India. The Archaeological Survey of India, unfortunately, has become a punching bag. Everybody blames to them, but actually, they're doing good work. And the recent development, not very recent, but they have started this national mission on monuments and antiquities, in which each and every artifact in the country is being registered, is being documented, and that is available in fact online. So as one of the panelists mentioned that unless this is done, perhaps the smuggling cannot be stopped. So this is done. In fact, I am from Deccan College, and we have documented nearly 2 lakh artifacts from Deccan College, and that is available now. Now nobody can touch these artifacts. So these type of efforts are made, and they are very, very laudable. We should give credit to Archaeological Survey of India, give credit to the Ministry of Culture in this respect. But what is also required now is that there is better coordination between Archaeological Survey of India or Ministry of Culture, Government of India, and also the Ministry of Culture in different states. There is no proper coordination, because of which a lot of things are happening. That needs to be stopped. And lastly, I would mention that unless we develop a proper strategy, we have to have proper bylaws, rules, in fact, for the protection of our heritage. That is missing. That needs to be done. And also, even if we get these objects back, how do we preserve them? How do we know where do we place them? We do not have in the country a state-of-the-art conservation lab. That country like Japan or Korea, where I spent a lot of time, Japan had almost 8 different state-of-the-art conservation labs. Such a small country, and India does not have that. Now government has to think seriously about developing this type of facilities. We have to take care of our objects. A lot of objects are lying without any care, so we need to take care of this. But this is a very, very important development, and even if the government has opened up a little late, but this is a really welcome, and I'm sure that we will be successful in getting this. Also, as one of the panelists mentioned, that there should be awareness about the people. People are not really aware, and we are to be blamed because we are not making sufficient efforts to make awareness among the people. Unless we bring to their notice, and there is awareness, perhaps there should be a participation of the people, and then only these things, this type of maybe retrievation or preservation is possible. So this is what is required in part for the country. But this is great news, and really I'm happy about that. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And Nikhil Singh Rajput, there's also this facet of appreciating from an intellectual point of view to the gravity of this entire situation, and something which your movie has also tried to highlight, that this is, obviously a part of Indian heritage and culture, but there's also a lot of money attached to it. Since the colonial ages, there are more than 15,000 artifacts which have been smuggled outside of the country, and they all have a value. Some experts value them at over $15 billion, which is roughly somewhere around 1,00,000 crores.
Yeah. So, and that is one thing that we need to tell even every small village temple for that matter, because for them, the Panch Tattva Murti that they have is a deity. But what happens is for an international peddler, smuggler, it's worth millions of dollars. So they need to be told that, okay, this is also valuable other than just being religiously valuable. And the local police stations need to be told that, because they are the people who will file that FIR. And in most cases, they have zero idea of the values of those murtis other than them being religious items. So I think that is something that can be done or should be done rather urgently, should have been done decades back, but you're never too late. So they should have done it already. So yeah,
Okay.
we need to do that.
Akshay Chavan, in your opinion, how do we invigorate people into realizing the, value of this concept? How do you, in fact, galvanize people or sensitize them into realizing that this is not just a piece of art which was made, hundreds of years ago. It is also something which contributes towards the legacy of India. It contributes towards tourism. It contributes towards people's beliefs. It contributes towards religion.
So the whole idea is that, more than the economic value, it is to tell the people a sense of ownership, to give them a sense of ownership. So, unfortunately in India, history, art, culture has been seen as very elitist. But, when I started Live History, or, I have worked with other historians to take it to the masses, to take it away from the ivory towers. So a banker or an industrialist knows the local history, but a local rickshawala or a shopkeeper also knows his local history. And in India, I have traveled, in remote regions of Bundelkhand down to coastal Andhra, looking at these monuments. There is a sense of pride. Unfortunately, what happens is, for us, history is this very 20,000 feet up from the ground, the Mughal monuments, the Konark temple, like a very high level way of looking at it. But if we start promoting local history, what I call the mohalla history, the temple, your village temple, if that becomes a sense of pride, a local fort just outside your town, that becomes a sense of pride, and local town people know the history of that Killa and who made it and what was the story behind it. That gives them a sense of ownership, a pride, and then it becomes in their interest to protect the monument. So, and when that pride happens, they also start seeing economic benefits, and then a lot of things start happening. But first is a sense of ownership towards local monuments. I mean, the Taj Mahal or the Konark Temple, Vijayanagar can happen later, but your local monuments need to be given the pride of place.
That's a good point. That's a very good point that you have made, Nikhil Chandwani. The fact of the matter is that there has to be some sort of an identity which has to be invested in these artifacts and these antiquities of all Indians. If people identify you with the Mona Lisa just because you're French, it's centuries of work and promotion that has gone into these artifacts from France. If people associate you with the Taj Mahal, obviously your identity is associated with it, and a lot of Indians, perhaps me included, are not perhaps aligned towards how our identities are shaped through culture, antiquities, and these artifacts. Perhaps if we can change that, what Akshay said, then there is probably going to be more respect towards these antiquities, and if you have more respect, there is obviously going to be more safeguarding.
Yes. So I am a Sindhi, and we lost a state during partition. And one of the reason I feel that right now a lot of Sindhis, a lot of people who are in India right now, the Hindu Sindhis in India, they are unable to recognize their history. We don't even know the language that we spoke 500 years back. We don't even know how we wrote 500 years back. We lost everything. We lost our land, we lost our temples, we lost a language, we even lost how we wrote. We don't know right now what we wrote, how we wrote, and what our history was. And artifacts are something that can help preserve this history. And that's what a lot of people right now here, the panelists also, they are all working on. And Archaeological Survey of India, they have done a tremendous job in trying to bring in all the artifacts and trying to preserve all the artifacts, because if we forget our artifacts, if we are not bringing it back to our nation, we lose our culture, and gradually we lose our language. And if we lose our culture, if we lose our language, the civilization will be extinct. And the reason India is the oldest surviving civilization is because we have preserved the history through our artifacts. We have worshipped it. We worship everything that moves and grows. And maybe that is why we have survived and we are thriving right now. And we should continue doing that. We should continue bringing back the stolen goods, the stolen wonders of past. And if we are able to do that, if we are able to bring that back, maybe 20 years, 30 years later, my children, my grandchildren, they might be able to recognize and learn that lost language from Sindhu Desh, from our past state that we lost to the invaders. And maybe like 50 years, 30 years later, they might be able to preserve something that is gone extinct right now, and only the artifacts are something that can save it.
Right, that's a good point. And Professor Shinde, museums are perhaps the ideal places where most of these artifacts and antiquities are kept, but there has to be a localized system of appreciating these museums. So far, predominant part of the museums that we either visit or we know of exist in the metropolis, in the big cities. They haven't been localized to an extent where it could be an option for the local populace to entertain themselves and learn more about their history. Do you think that would do the trick of appreciation?
Yeah, that is very important, of course, because once the museums are established, in different parts, in different regions, even in maybe small districts, perhaps the local people will be educated there. In fact, they will be told about the importance of the cultural heritage, the relevance of the cultural heritage, why we study this, our art or heritage. They should know about that, and unless that is done, perhaps people will not come forward. The government has already started initiative in this respect. I'm not sure whether you know about the development of one of the biggest national maritime heritage complexes coming up in a very remote place in Gujarat, Lothal, which is quite remote. So now government has realized that these type of places needs to be developed properly. So this is really happening, and I'm sure that that more and more in this respect will create a lot of buzz, and also a lot of awareness. If the awareness is made, I'm sure that a lot of sites, a lot of monuments will be saved. What happens today in the quest of getting these objects for maybe smuggling purpose, for maybe for money purpose, a lot of sites, a lot of monuments are being destroyed. They are being desiccated sometimes, and even temples, a lot of beautiful temples are they are destroyed in this particular process. So if the local people are made aware about the importance of this heritage, perhaps they will stop this type of destruction. I'll just give you one example. Rakhigarhi, of course, everybody knows that when we went there, in fact, for the study, they said that we will not really allow you to study here because you people come here, get publicity and go back. What do we get? So there, we started our awareness program, and today I'm happy to announce that the local people have started the site protection group, and they're making sure that not a single shred of the site is taken outside Rakhigarhi. So these type of efforts are being made, and they need to be made.
Right.
And then a lot of sites needs to be developed from tourism point of view, and if you can do that, I'm sure that there will be a lot of buzz,
Right.
lot of awareness.
And it is it is still a good start, and that's what we need to hail, and that's what we also
Yes,
need
yes.
to appreciate as well. Thank you, gentlemen, for being a part of this wonderful show. It is always heartening to see that India's culture, India's tradition, India's antiquities and India's artifacts are not only appreciated, but they're also brought back, and this process obviously must go on.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.